Welcome to another episode of Football Tailgaters, where we talk everything about the NFL, including your picks for bets and fantasy. In today's episode, as usual, I have here with me Yams, the Jets fan, Andy, the unbiased football fan, and myself, Aaron, the Cowboys fan. And we're going to come closer to just finally, ranking our division standings for, both the NFC and the AFC, and today we're going to talk about the AFC standings with the Bills, Patriots, Dolphins, and Jets. We're going to see if, are they going to replicate last year's standings with Bills number 1, Patriots getting a wild card spot, Dolphins, not making it, and the Jets being last, sadly. Sorry, Yams. And then after that, we're going to talk about who should be the number 1 overall pick in fantasy, and this is just not who our picks are going to be, but who we think is going to be the number 1, and the average number 1 overall pick for fantasy, football fantasy. But we'll start with the AFC East standings. And, we had the Bills going, what was it? It was like the divisional playoffs, right, against the Chiefs, and it went into that crazy overtime. They got stuck there. They finished 11-6 in the season. Not bad at all. Pretty good for what they have. And then right behind them, by just one win, one loss difference type of thing, it was the Patriots 10-7, really close. They got a wild card spot, sorry. And then we had the Dolphins finishing 9-8. Tua's up in the air if he's even the franchise quarterback. There's questions there, but they got him set up this season. They got a big acquirement with Tyreek Hill. We'll see how that turns out. And then, we got Jets, sadly, 4-13, but that's a developing team that might have a bright future. Yam seems to think so. What are you guys' rankings, Yams? How are you doing this? How are you ranking these guys?
Well, I think the obvious one here that goes number 1 is Buffalo Bills. They are practically 13 seconds from making the Super Bowl, in my opinion. They were 11-6 last year. They had number 1 defense last year, which is kind of surprising to me because I always thought they kind of blew the lead last year. They did sign a big bluster move this year, and they got Von Miller. This might be the Super Bowl star that they need so they can push them to the Super Bowl appearance. In my opinion, the Buffalo Bills are a Super Bowl or bust. If they don't make it this year, I just don't see them going anywhere. So I have them going number 1. Number 2, I have Miami Dolphins. They had a massive losing streak last year. They were losing back to back, but they also started winning a whole bunch of games. I think they won 8 games straight, which then led to Brian Flores being fired, which is pretty crazy to me because I thought he was a decent coach, and he got his team all fired up to win 8 straight games in a row. The key adds that they had, which is a huge one, is Tyreek Hill. He is the fastest player in the NFL. They did get Chase Edmonds. They got Wilson from the Cowboys. They did hire the head coach from the Kyle Shanahan tree, so they're trying to bring in that system on here. There is a lot of questions with Tua as a quarterback. I don't believe he's the answer. We will see, but they do have a decent backup, which is Teddy Bridgewater. So this team can be deadly. I don't think people should be sleeping out in this team. They should watch out. So I have them at number 2. Patriots, I have them at number 3 because they lost more than they gained. They did have a winning season last year. I know you mentioned that, Aaron. They did make it to the playoffs as a wild card. This all falls down on Mac Jones. He is a solid player. He had a solid year. He was great at his executions on his throws. He was accurate with the football. He didn't put the ball in harm's way, which is always a good thing. Of course, you can make the argument that he didn't really attempt to push the ball down, or he failed, or he wasn't successful at it. You could kind of see that he's kind of on the training wheels. We'll see if that comes off this year. But at the end of the day, it all worked out, right? They all made it to the playoffs. But the big elephant in the room here is who's calling the shots at the offensive coordinator? Is it Matt Patricia? I know they brought in Joe Judge. I know that they haven't really truly announced who is it, right? So The offensive side of the ball is pretty important, especially when you have a quarterback coming into the second year. So it'll be interesting to see how that turns out. So I have them coming at number 3. They also got Devontae Parker, which I think is a pretty decent wide receiver. They also added back Malcolm Butler, which I can't remember if that's the one that sealed the Super Bowl against the Seattle.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Okay, so they got him back, so that's good. I don't know if he's great as he was when he did win that Super Bowl for them. Now, they did lose some pretty big ones here. In my opinion, J.C. Jackson, who's now with the Chargers, he's probably maybe one of the best cornerbacks in the league. You know, we can argue that. And there's also Josh McDaniels, who's the offensive coordinator, who is now gone, who is not there to develop Mac Jones in his second year. And sadly, I have my New York Jets. They were the worst defensive team in football last year. Sadly, with Robert Saleh, who is a defensive mind coach. They did get a lot of free agency signings that I think will be really helpful. It was key for them, so they did spend the money there. They had an A+ draft, in my opinion. Obviously, they drafted Sauce Gardner, who was a cornerback, wide receiver Garrett Wilson, and they also got Jermaine Johnson, who they traded up for. So, in my opinion, they pretty much knocked it out of the park with the picks, right? So we're going to see how that plays this year. Now, the thing with the Jets is they are in a better shape now than they were 2 years ago. The most intriguing thing about this team is the quarterback. Can Wilson really show up? Is Wilson the answer? Is Salah the answer? So I believe that the Jets have now, a team surrounding the quarterback that can help him develop. So it all falls down onto Zach Wilson, which I do think that the keys are now with him, and now he just has to drive.
Yeah, good point. The hardest thing for me in this particular ranking is if there's going to be more than one team going to the playoffs. So, of course, I have Buffalo as number 1. They need to get to the Super Bowl this year, or I don't know, they have to make some type of change that to get them to that level. Either it's offensive coordinator or like really beef up that defense to make it unstoppable. And I think that's what they need, just a better defense. And thankfully they got Von Miller, so they can maybe get to that Super Bowl with that veteran experience to help that defense to put them in those positions where they need to be and be able to make that jump in defense to the next level. But after that, I have the Patriots, and then Miami, and then the Jets. So with the Patriots, if we look into how many teams can go into the playoffs, it's 7 teams out of each conference. So I am betting that the AFC West is actually going to be the teams that are it's gonna be one of those times that all of those teams are gonna go to the playoffs. If you compare the schedules between the Patriots and the Las Vegas Raiders, which the Las Vegas Raiders are the closest team that I can see that which one of these teams are gonna go to the playoffs, I'm gonna pick the Las Vegas Raiders. And with the Patriots, it's going to be that season that they're just not going to be able to make the playoffs, and there's going to be a lot of media talk if Bill Belichick can actually turn this team around with this second-year quarterback and with the teams. They didn't enhance the team that much to get to that level if they want to compete with Buffalo. Miami, they did their moves, big-time moves. I applaud them for that, but the Patriots didn't. And I only have one game that they're winning more than Miami. So I have the Buffalo Bills at 12-5, the New England Patriots at 9-8, Miami Dolphins at 8-9, and the New York Jets at 7-10. So the Miami Dolphins can certainly just be the second place in this division and put the Patriots into the third place. The Jets, I've said it in many episodes already, they just need to prove. I have no clue like what they can bring. They can be a complete bust and just win a couple more games than last year, and that, and if much. But I need to see things from Zach Wilson and the head coach Robert Saleh. They got a lot of hype with the draft picks, and they were really good draft picks if you put it on paper. But we need to see if they are busts or they actually are hits. So with the Jets, it's just a big question mark. So that's my rankings.
I wanna. One thing that kind of stuck out to me, which you said with the Patriots, was well, like, what are they turning around? What is 10-7 like? I think that's really good for what they have on paper on that roster. I think Bill Belichick is doing a great job. I'm not sweating on who's calling these offensive shots. They're doing great with what they have, and
can you name me a wide receiver besides Myers?
I just mentioned one, Devontae Parker.
Oh, they got Devontae Parker, yes.
Okay, Devontae Parker. What, was he like a big star in Miami?
No, but my point is 10-7 with that roster is insane. And
it is, and I agree with you.
Statistically and roster-wise, with comparing what the Dolphins have, the Dolphins should be above the Patriots.
Well, yeah. So with 10-7, they didn't elevate themselves, and the Miami Dolphins did.
9-8 Dolphins, the ones that didn't make the playoffs last season, did better than the Patriots 10-7 that made the wild card spot. So that's my point. Is with what they have at that point is, I think as a Patriots fan, I'm excited because we just had an insane dynasty, crushing the Jets, the Dolphins, the Bills for years and years on end with Tom Brady. And it's always been this fight. It's like, oh, who's the mastermind of this? Tom Brady, Bill Belichick. Man, they're both great people. They're both, one's a great coach, one's a great quarterback. They each respectively deserve their respect. So with what Bill Belichick has right now is insane with what he's producing. I should have expected them to do less than what they did with 10-7. So I'm gonna start with the Bills being an easy lock with the division win here. They're not even like, I'm not even gonna put them any less than that. I think I do have them going at 12-5 in my opinion as well. And I can see the Patriots perhaps repeating a 10-7, which isn't the worst with what they have. Again, they were able to compete for a wild card spot. They were able to perform, I guess. They weren't able to perform in the playoffs. Obviously, they got crushed by the Bills. But again, look at the roster; it's barely starting. So if you're able to succeed with that amount of talent, they got a pretty good future with Bill Belichick, overseeing everything. So they'll be fine. They'll probably be sitting at 10-7 again. And it's the tough part is the Dolphins, man. I want to put them above the Patriots. They definitely do have a shot. But I'm kind of nervous about them. They're not a team that I am very 100% confident on because, they did get, a new coach. Tua's still in the hot seat. It's kind of weird here what he's able to do. He's a good quarterback, but I mean, can everyone else produce and help him out as well? Because I don't think he can carry a whole team. He's a good quarterback, but he's not great. So I'm kind of mixed about those two, but I think it would be kind of like a 1-game difference when it comes to the Patriots and Dolphins again. So I think I would put the Patriots again at number 2. I guess I'll put them like at 10-7, maybe a 9-8. And then I would put the Dolphins around either 9-8 or 10-7 as well. Best case scenario, if they're able to perform, I can't see them going above that. Maybe go 11-6 somehow. But for now, I'm gonna put them at number 3 because that's what I feel more comfortable with. Not dissing them at all. I just think that I need to see more from them. And the Jets, they have, like, I'm hopeful for them, but I also don't want to get too ahead of the curve. Like, it's with that team, they got a great draft. It's just, Yams kind of mentions here, we have to see what we can see for Salah and Wilson. So what we see with those two this season will determine their future. One of them is gonna go, I think. If it doesn't really work out, if we don't see Zach Wilson producing as good as they thought he will, maybe we can see him out the window in like a season or two, like after this season, obviously. So what is that, like 2-3 years? Salah, if it's really leaning towards Salah, I think Salah's gone a lot sooner than Zach Wilson. If that's the case, I think they're gonna have more patience with Wilson if he's not producing as good, but we could maybe develop him for one more year.
What would be the better, like, smart maneuver for the Jets if they actually don't do well this year? Let's just say
the Salah's on the hot seat.
Well,
if that's the case.
Let's just say that the quarterback played like last year. He struggled in the beginning and then got a little hot later in the season. And it's just like this last season. Let's just say that it's exactly like that, like how it happened last season. And the players that they drafted, I mean, they're part of the team, and they did do some plays, but nothing spectacular. So what would be the smartest move for the Jets to do at that point?
Like after the season?
Yeah, after the season.
If he if Wilson got, like, he didn't do as well, but then he got a good start, a hot start or a hot streak later in the season. And then what did you say about Salah? Did you say anything about Salah?
No, not really. I'm just saying that it happened just the same as last year.
If Zach Wilson produces the same way he did last season, it's because it's tough because Zach Wilson missed like 4 games last season. We weren't able to see him completely have a good, healthy season. So I think it would be even more of a concern that if he gets injured again next season, then, man, that's really tough. I would really start considering, depending on where we land this draft, I would see, I would compare the new upcoming quarterbacks to Zach Wilson.
So you're leaning
their potential
more towards replacing Zach Wilson and keeping Salah.
Well, yes, but you're going with the exact scenario of how Zach Wilson performs. But if Zach Wilson performs good enough, Salah's out the window.
See,
but, I mean, that's pretty obvious. I mean, whichever underperforms most is out the window. So if Zach Wilson does not perform enough to expectation, he's out, obviously. Maybe give him, like, they won't pull. It's because you compare them to other teams too, like the Giants. Why isn't Daniel Jones out?
Because I believe they're rebuilding carefully, and they knew that this year they wouldn't get their star franchise quarterback, so they're just waiting for next year. Like I said, next year we're gonna have. So you think
Daniel Jones is out the window?
Yeah, for sure. They're moving on from.
I think Robert Salah stays. It has to be a disaster of a season, a disaster for him to be let go next.
A 4-13 disaster?
No, like worse.
Well, 4-13 is pretty bad.
I think 4-13 is pretty bad.
It does depend because they are in a tough division. So if there's improvement at 4-13,
I don't think that really matters. If that they're in a tough division, they have to produce regardless.
But as long as there's improvement, like if you see the players improving.
So if you give them 2 more wins, let's just say 6 wins, you're keeping both of them.
You're keeping both of them. But it depends on how Zach Wilson plays. If he continues to make the same mistakes that he did last year.
Just like I told you, let's say last year,
then
the same thing.
I would definitely do think the Jets will be seeking to get another quarterback. Wilson's still on the roster, though.
You don't think that they would trade him or let him go?
I don't know. I think they'll pull like a Panthers thing and just do a quarterback competition.
That would be the ideal situation where you would draft another quarterback and be like, yo, Zach Wilson, you're not doing good enough, bro. Like, you're going to be out the window soon if you don't do anything, so here's competition.
See, I don't think that's a smart way of doing things.
I think it's more so they have to get a veteran quarterback.
No.
They have Joe Flacco.
Well, I mean, like
he's a Super Bowl winning quarterback.
He is.
All right.
I just don't think I don't see what you're saying, Aaron. I don't see that that's a Joe Douglas way to have a quarterback competition. It doesn't seem that that's the type of GM he is. I think he likes to build a culture, so that type of quarterback competition, it's not something that.
That's why I'm saying I think Salah is more out the window than Zach Wilson. In general.
I disagree. So how I would see it happening is, and the smartest way of doing things is to, if you have only 4 wins or 6 wins, and Zach Wilson played the exact same way, start of the season, had trouble, and then got a little bit better towards the end of the season, I know that I probably am not going to be able to do anything much with him. So I would actually move on, and I would seek a trade or just plainly cut him. And with the coaching staff, you have to do some changes within the coordinators. Do not let go of Salah. It's too early, because when you switch the coach, you switch the whole system in place. And since you're building a system with the GM and the coach, you have to keep on in the same plan and do some maneuvers here and there to be able to get the ship where it needs to go. And I would say what do you call the quarterback? The captain of the ship, right? If he's not organizing or making the ship go wherever it needs to go with its crew members, then you just replace the captain with another captain. So I would just get a quarterback from the draft and move on from him. Like, you take your time looking to see who's the best hire, but you fire quickly and move on.
Especially with this deep class of quarterbacks coming next year. So yeah, I would take the opportunity.
All right, so let's not get fixated on he's going to perform exactly the same this season. Are you guys expecting him to be the same as last season?
Well, coming from a Jets fan, yeah, I do. I want to have.
So you don't have faith in it?
I'm sorry?
So you don't have faith in them?
I don't have. It's just the Jets. I want to have faith in it, and I get hyped, and I always, end up getting disappointed. I want to. I hear and read great things that Zach Wilson's getting buff. He's landing, practice, but it's just practice at the end of the day. I need to see it on the field. So we'll see when
he played 13 games. He was averaging 6.1 yards per attempt. 9 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. He got sacked 44 times, which I think was one of the most in the league. Let's see what else.
Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson were ranked the least, number 31 and number 32, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, yes. We talked about that, I think, last podcast, if I'm not mistaken. That was saying that they were the 2 worst performing quarterbacks out of all the starting quarterbacks. So you
can't get any worse then, right? I mean, you can, but I mean, it's pretty hard to get worse. I'm expecting Zach Wilson to be a little bit better, to at least see some improvement. And he saw the whole season. It's fairly new for a quarterback in the league to just throw everything at him, especially in a team like the Jets that they're not too organized, and it was a new head coach. So it's like you're just doing trial and errors there instead of a good organization like the Patriots that already know what's going on and what's happening, and to help that quarterback. You can completely see the difference between good organizations and bad organizations with the Patriots and the Jets. The Bill Belichick, he had everything organized, and he was very delicate with his quarterback. And with Zach Wilson, they just threw him out in the wolves, and let's see what he can do. They did not just
throw him out in the wolves. That's him playing. That's training. It's just not on training wheels like Mac Jones.
That's also him getting injured, missing 4 games.
Yeah, and the coach not getting on him is you can't do that. Next game, you do not dare of doing these types of maneuvers or throws. But
they need to nurture him, and they're not nurturing him.
So you mentioned that he got sacked and injured. So the Patriots, they actually lost a linebacker. He went to the Chargers, and from what I'm reading, he's pretty good. Kyle Van Noy.
Mm-hmm.
So Mac Jones doesn't have that next year, or this year, sorry, this coming up year. And to your point, yeah, Zach Wilson did get injured. Mekhi Becton wasn't there. He got out in the first game, in the first half, and never returned. He was supposed to come back. His injury was projected to come in the middle of the season to be healed up, but then he gained weight and wasn't able to return.
If you're the Jets, this might be another possibility to happen. You better have somebody on the left tackle to be ready in case he comes down. So that's not an excuse for this season. If I'm the owner of the Jets, that's not an excuse.
No, and that's why I said that, the Jets have, I think, in my opinion, they have answered some of the key players that were missing during the draft and the offseason with the free agency. So this is Zach Wilson's opportunity to actually show that he has improved. They have given him the weapons. Now it's time for him to show up. And if he doesn't, he's still missing those layups that he was missing earlier in the season, where they were just 5 yards and he was just missing them. He has to land those.
Well, you and I agree that if it happens again, just like last year, that Zach Wilson is out the door and Salah stays. And Aaron is saying that Salah's going to go.
Salah stays, Wilson's gone.
Mm-hmm.
No. I said if he performs the exact same way, I would look into this draft. Yes, that's it. But I was saying in general, if it's just like, if he performs good enough, like better than this past season, then I don't think he's gone. But I think, Yams, I think you should put your faith in Mike White.
He surprised everybody for like a week and a half.
You know what? I'm
destroyed against the Patriots.
I'm still hyped up. I'm sad that he couldn't play in that. Was it Thursday night?
It
was Thursday night. He got injured.
And that Joe Flacco came in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Miami is the excitement for me in this division because they threw everything. They bought everything. The nice cars, the nice motorcycles. I mean, with Tyreek Hill and Cedric Wilson. They have Waddle and they got some defensive help as well. Like they have a whole bunch of good running backs as well. So they're like stacked. They're going to be running the ball a lot. So make sure you put that on the list for fantasy because they're going to be doing a lot of run pass options.
Don't they have like a running back committee over there? Oh man, last season, the past 2 seasons, dude, I kept getting like Dolphins running backs. They're really unreliable.
Well,
especially with Brian Flores. I had Myles Gaskin. Oh man, he would have great games, and then the next game he would he would just perform out of his mind. Fantasy. The next game he had like 5 attempts. It was stupid. It was really stupid.
Well, remember, their new head coach is the offensive coordinator from the San Francisco 49ers of last year. And what did that team do? They ran the ball so much with the 49ers, so much. And when he moved to the Dolphins, they actually got more running backs. So I'm pretty sure that they're going to keep
the research has to be, is there going to be a number 1 that they're going to keep going to on the running game? And then, they obviously, are they going to have a passing back here?
For sure.
Game, but that's the thing I would be most concerned about is, are they going to have a committee going on, or are they having their number 1 running back where they're just going to give them like 20 attempts or like 18 attempts or whatever it is, a really high amount of attempts, or are they just going to rotate them out? That's what I'm nervous about, because I think the 49ers are doing that this season, right?
Well,
I saw somewhere an article, I saw it being reported that I think it's the 49ers going on running back committee. But I can double check that.
I mean, they got Chase. Yeah. They acquired Chase Edmonds, Raheem Mostert, Sony Michel, and they still have Myles Gaskins. I mean, that's 3 running backs that they got for this season. So they're really getting into that like running back mentality, and I'm not saying like pick them up like early. Those are sleepers that you can bank them for later on in the rounds. I think that those are good pickups, and I mean they can actually be really good hits. I consider them as sleepers.
Kyle Shanahan from the 49ers said that they don't have a clear number 1 running back, and they're gonna do a committee to figure out. That's how they're going to approach it this season. So I'd be very nervous about the 49ers running back if I was drafting.
Yeah, because their main one, Deebo Samuel said, I don't want any of it. So now they have to scramble and find who's going to do it.
They have a big question mark because this week the training camp starts and you have to set up a game plan. And if they don't have their true running back there. And then you have the situation with the quarterback with Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo. Even though they said, okay, fine, Jimmy, you can find another team and go find a trade. But I don't see anybody like calling really quickly. So Jimmy G did take him to the NFC Championship. It's a really delicate situation with the 49ers. And it's kind of, if I was a 49ers fan, I'm kind of annoyed and like a little anxious of knowing what the deal is. And I'm afraid of paying Deebo Samuel a huge contract, which there's rumors that's going to be pretty big. And he doesn't want to play the running back and just wants to be a wide receiver. So I would think twice and really have a talk with him to make sure that Deebo Samuel can be playing both positions. If not, then I'm pretty sure another team would give me a high pick, maybe even a first round for him.
I know this is a little off topic. Jimmy Garoppolo was allowed a trade, right?
Right.
And that was reported, a couple of days ago?
Yeah, last week.
Last week?
Yeah.
And nothing has happened?
Nothing has happened.
So nobody wants him?
Well, Seattle Seahawks supposedly were doing their due diligence by him, but that doesn't mean anything. Supposedly they were looking into Baker Mayfield, and then they shut those rumors down, so who knows? It feels like mostly every team is kind of set with their quarterback, so there's not that many availability. I mean, I don't think the Panthers are going to give him a call. Would be really funny.
Well, it's weird because, Jimmy G is a solid player and when healthy, so if we'd love to see him play a full season.
Yeah, and then supposedly there's reports that the 49ers are not convinced with Trey Lance's ability to throw the ball. So that keeps you into a little nervous wreck, especially since they gave up so much to get him in the draft. But I think we moved on from AFC East to the 49ers, though.
Yeah, so my prediction is, so recap of my AFC East prediction, it is Buffalo at number 1, Miami at number 2, Patriots at number 3, and Jets at number 4. But let me be clear. 2, 3, or 4 can change. It's set that Buffalo's number 1, but 2, 3, and 4 can change in different orders. So
that's wishful thinking, but you keep that hope.
Let me just hope a little bit.
I can see the Bills going 12-5 pretty comfortably. I would put then, man, it's because I keep swaying back and forth about, okay, so I'm just gonna, whatever, it's gonna change anyways. It doesn't even matter. It's way too early to predict, but I'm gonna put it like this. Just because of the roster, I'm gonna put Dolphins going 11-6 and then Patriots 10-7. And then I can see the Jets going 7-10.
I mean, we're kind of similar. I have the Buffalo Bills 12-5, the Patriots 9-8, Miami 8-9, and Jets 7-10. And I have the Patriots in second place because they did go to the playoffs last year, and Bill Belichick is still the greatest coach ever. So it can completely change from Patriots to Miami. The Jets is just a cold prove it for me.
Sorry, Yams.
It's okay. I'm not offended.
I think on the running backs for Jets, their clear number 1. I'm trying to remember his name.
It was Breece Hall, right?
Breece Hall. That's what it seems like. They're yeah. It seems like he might be a good fantasy pick. I don't know. He's getting a little bit of talks around that area, but we'll move on and talk about more so fantasy, and we're gonna talk about who we think is gonna be the number 1 overall pick in a fantasy draft. And are we going, does like the whole PPR like matter here, or is it just like whatever, just
honestly, no, because usually when it's PPR, non-PPR leagues, you're still going to draft the number 1 player. That's the player that usually goes. So it's okay for this. If we were talking like later rounds, and you're going to have to do some strategies for this case, like no, it's probably the same player.
I think for me, it's pretty simple here. I think Jonathan Taylor is going to go overall number 1. I think he has a lot of hype because of what he did last season. It was insane type of numbers. He was just having an insane season. and I think he's going to be able to produce it again this season. So I have him going at number 1. And this is me, like, I was looking on the ESPN draft trends for fantasy, and he has really, at least based on earlier this month, he has on a 1.4 overall pick. So he's going pretty high at number 1. There's a lot of people, I guess, no-braining it going for Jonathan Taylor here. And then just trailing behind Jonathan Taylor, we have Cooper Kupp going at 2.8 overall, averaging a 2.8 draft. I think he's the only exception for a wide receiver. I would put maybe Devontae Adams, but he's kind of, I don't know, because he doesn't have Aaron Rodgers as a quarterback. But, I mean, I think he's the only exception of him maybe being considered for number 1. But I would personally stick with the running back, and that would be Jonathan Taylor going number 1.
Well, you said it, and you couldn't have said it better than I would. I think it's the obvious choice here is Jonathan Taylor. I mean, he's pretty much the undisputed number 1 fantasy pick. That goes number 1. Last season he's a stud, and he's the game. He's practically the reason why the Colts are good last year. I mean, he scored 5 touchdowns in 1 game. So in my opinion, he did everything. He had 18 rushing touchdowns. That's a lot. And he had 2 receiving, I believe. So yeah, it's a no-brainer. It's Jonathan Taylor.
He was able to produce an average of 19.6 fantasy points per game. And then fantasy points, he had like around 333, if I'm not mistaken, which was a big jump from his 2020 season, which was 216.8 points. He did miss 2 games. He only played 15, and it says here that he's starting in 13 of them. But he had a full, completely healthy season, and I think this is the time to take advantage of him because he is healthy, he is young, and he's got the legs to be able to produce and do great things. So I think it's pretty obvious. Andy, what do you think?
So, but just to add to that before you speak, Andy, because I know you mentioned, Aaron, that Cooper Kupp is right behind him. So I actually looked into who was this number 1 scorer in PPR league, and it's actually Cooper Kupp.
Yeah.
So just something to think about.
It's not stupid to pick
No,
him
not at
number
all.
1 overall. Not stupid.
No, not at all. But
unless Andy thinks under.
Andy, go ahead.
Well, I think we can make a disclosure of our experience with fantasy. Like you, Yams, you've won twice. Well, one. We have like two leagues now. Well, you have 2. You had 2 leagues last year, and last year you won both of them. One from work, an office, and then another one with a bunch of football fans.
This is my office. What are you talking about?
Well, this is the dream office here. So you have that experience, right? You have played. We've played actually for many years now, and last year you actually won first place on the football fans one and the work one.
Right, I won them in both.
So congratulations to you.
Thank you.
I myself have won 3. I don't think I should consider the first one too much because it was a pretty small fantasy, and that's when we were like it was our first time and we didn't have that many people in the league. But I did twice like consecutively in years, so we would say that we do have some good experience and we do our research. We actually, before our fantasy date, we just hit down in the books, like in the library. We get magazines, we get into our computers. We do a lot of due diligence to make sure that we are picking the correct ways and to have different like strategies if you're going to be picking first or last or in the middle. So, and Aaron, I know Aaron hasn't played that much, but you're getting there, right? You're getting the hang of it. Don't you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I won I was in 2 leagues and I won one of them pretty good, pretty comfortably, and I have my strategy. I'm picking up my favorites, and I am getting the hang of it a little bit more.
Great. Yeah. So I know I can see that you're getting better. So we've been playing fantasy, I would say, for how long? Like 10 years probably. It's been
close to 10 years.
I've only had, what is it, 3? I think it's been 3
Yeah,
years for me.
for you 3, but us probably like we're close to 10, maybe 8 or to 10. So I don't remember, but last year it was Yams. Before that one, it was myself. Before that one, it was myself, and then the others. Well, we had other winners, but we tend to be in the playoffs. So, yeah.
So how many total wins do you have, Andy?
Well, it's because it's hard. It's 3, but not sure if I should consider the first one because it was
the rookie year.
It was the rookie year, and it was a smaller league. So I don't know. I put that into your guys's I don't know, whatever you guys would think about that. But anyways, the player that I think that should go number 1, and I completely agree with you guys, it's Jonathan Taylor. He was a monster in the running back for the Indianapolis Colts, even though they had some hard situations at the quarterback. And it seems like that team didn't make too many moves except switching the quarterback, which is one of the biggest pieces there. And Matt Ryan, with his running backs, he actually does pretty well with them. So I am excited to see Jonathan Taylor. But here's a big but, though. Christian McCaffrey. That guy is a monster, a totally different type of monster as a running back. So it's a risk, not
when he's healthy.
When he's healthy, and he hasn't been healthy in these last 2 years. But it takes time to come back from an ACL. So I believe this year he is going to be coming back to maybe not how he was in the very beginning, but close to it. And of course, injuries can always happen. But if he comes to how he close to what he was at the beginning, he's gonna be the number 1. Like, no questions asked for me. He catches, he runs, and they use him constantly. And I know they have a quarterback like carousel there with the Panthers, but they still have decent wide receivers that can open the field for them, and they still. They drafted an offensive lineman through and this year's draft, so they're actually doing pretty. They're set to have a good running game. So I would put an asterisk, and I still haven't made a decision of what I'm going to be doing because I'm still researching. But I wouldn't blame anybody taking Christian McCaffrey first overall. And with Cooper Kupp. He was the leader in the first round, so the only thing that would make me question his ability to be again the number 1 draft pick in fantasy is that they actually got another mega wide receiver in Robinson. So they might be able to share some of the throws and catches between those. So maybe his role is going to diminish, not by a lot because he's still Cooper Kupp, but it might diminish and that might not be as good as last year. So I would also put that under consideration. But he should be top 1 or 2 wide receiver taken, no questions asked.
And I think he's going to be in the top 10 taken in a lot of these drafts.
For sure, along with Devontae Adams, for sure.
And Christian McCaffrey's a risky pick when I know Jonathan Taylor's a lot younger and a lot sturdier and can perform based on what he did this past season.
Well, he's not super a lot younger. I believe it's just a 2-year difference between them.
It's a 3-year difference.
3 years. Oh.
It's just a lot more comfortable for me, in my opinion, going with someone that I know was able to produce and isn't coming off an injury that has been struggling. So that's why it's a lock for me, Jonathan Taylor. I do see the consideration of Christian McCaffrey, but I don't know. I mean, we kind of saw what happened with the complications of other running backs going down. Derrick Henry, Alvin Kamara. Jonathan Taylor is just brand new. He's just too new at this to be not to take at number 1.
And you mentioned Derrick Henry, and I know he's also a monster of a running back. But what makes me nervous is they took away the passing game from those wide receivers. They don't have AJ Brown, the monster wide receiver that they had. They don't have Julio Jones anymore. So that's just going to put a lot more pressure on the running game. and it might affect his. It probably will affect his points in fantasy. So I would still take him in the first round because he is a really good running back, but I'm not too sure right now how high I would take him. A lot of people would put him at top 5, but I don't know as of yet. You still have the other running backs there. You still have Eckler, which I think I might take him over Henry, but I'm not too sure yet. Again, we're just discussing the number 1. It's still a little early to make those picks. So, and then there's also Dalvin Cook as well. So, and then with that new offense, with that coach with the offensive mentality in Minnesota, that's another running back that's going to get a lot of touches. So
I would put Harris before. I would put
Najee
Harris before Cook.
So in the ESPN Live draft trends, it says that Najee Harris is an 8.4 and Dalvin Cook is a 10.8. Derrick Henry's a 5.9. So he's almost averaging like a 6 overall pick, Derrick Henry. And Christian McCaffrey's like a 4.7. And Austin Eckler is a 4.5. And then from there's a big jump in the averaging here with the 2.8 with Cooper Kupp and then, Jonathan Taylor. But in between Derrick Henry and Najee Harris is Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, which I find interesting. Devontae Adams is below Najee Harris, but above Dalvin Cook.
Man, Jamar Chase, he made my season.
I think he's...
And Devontae Adams, too.
Yeah.
A huge pick.
Last year, I owe it to my wide receiver picks that helped me out win the season.
And, with Najee Harris, man, they used him almost in every single down there in Pittsburgh. So it just kind of gets me worried. I mean, maybe not this season because he's still fairly a new running back. But if it's going to continue that way, I don't know how long his career is going to be because they're using him quite a lot. So I would take advantage of Najee Harris.
He could have a Jonathan Taylor type of season, almost. Not the exact same one, but he could get close to it because it would be his second season, which is how Jonathan Taylor got his explosion.
Very good point.
What do you guys think of Joe Mixon?
He's a solid pick.
I think he's good.
There's a lot of people.
I wouldn't put him top 10.
No, he's second round.
He's second round for you?
I think he's late first, early second.
Early second.
A lot of people actually question picking him because he has off seasons and he has good seasons. Last year was a good season.
He's been pretty good under with Joe Burrow. It's been pretty good with Joe Mixon. I know because I choose him.
It's only been 1 year because the first year with Joe Burrow, Joe Burrow went down. So you're talking about this new head coach mostly then.
Yes, under this new head coach. Yeah, I've picked Mixon practically every year because he has such hype, right? So, but this year, this is the best he's ever paid out was this year. And the year before, he was okay. He was decent. He was a good, solid running back, over, I can't think of one on the top of my head. Like Kamara, who was really good at some point.
Yeah, like
I can't compare Kamara with Mixon at all. Kamara was a monster.
Overall better.
Yeah, and in his prime, Kamara was huge. He was like the number 1 guy.
But he stopped.
Well, because he got injured.
Last year he was injured?
I believe so.
I think someone who's kind of being overlooked here is DeAndre Swift. I think DeAndre Swift, he's being picked 17. He's averaging a 17 overall pick. So that's a early-ish second round, almost mid.
You can also debate he could be a first.
100%. That's what I was going to say. I think DeAndre Swift could be a very good first round pick. So if he falls off, he could be a really, really good running back too.
Yeah, because
I
the
don't know.
Detroit Lions were actually pretty close in a lot of games, and they weren't playing horrible. Like usually, you see those teams that are picking like first in the draft or second in the draft, and they're like horrible, and they're just getting blown out. But these guys won't. They weren't. I'm sorry. They were playing pretty well, and they were playing really close to a lot of good teams. So
I think he might be like a high first round pick, or even can drop to the second round. I think what's being overlooked here is actually Aaron Jones.
I don't.
it might be the same situation as type of Henry with with Devontae Adams leaving there, and their passing game is not too much there. But they have Aaron Rodgers, so I can't compare Tannehill with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is going to find people regardless, so he's still going to have a good season.
Yeah, I don't think he's necessarily being overlooked. I just don't think he's going to perform better than anyone like, obviously Jonathan Taylor or like, Derrick Henry, Najee Harris. I don't think he's going to perform better, but he's going to be like, I would put him on par, maybe slightly below that. I would feel more comfortable having him as a running back 2 than a running back 1, in my opinion, because of that reason of what Andy said. So, what's interesting? Okay, so I want to ask this question. What about this one? Who do you think is the first tight end? Do you think is there going to be a first round tight end?
First round tight end? I don't think so.
Yeah, I
would
not this season. Okay.
Not ever.
Not ever?
No, not ever.
You have to be a pretty hardcore fantasy, like really big time expert to get a whole bunch of like key players throughout the rounds for that to pull something like that off. That means that you're like all set, and I don't know, you're actually one of those people that are really, really like type of a good expert. Either you're an expert,
there's those
or
seasons.
There's
those seasons where you can have like a lot of saturation in the running backs or wide receivers, so you're pretty comfortable in taking a really good tight end in like the early second round or like even late first round.
No, for me it's because you know what, when you don't get a tight end pretty early in the rounds, and I'm saying early for me would be like third round, maybe high second, but you're really, really risking missing out on a good pickup on a running back or a wide receiver that you could potentially get. But if you are able to snag someone, and hopefully in the second round, or actually in the third round, it would be Kels. But
yeah, you can have situations though where, what if the players that are taking that are performing that that can have a great performances are all gone, and you're just left with like he's good, but then you have those tight ends where they could be as good as the ones that are in the first round.
Well, the thing is with tight ends also, well, remember, you have one tight end usually in all leagues and one flex play. And there's only a handful of these tight ends. Well, you have Kelsey, Mark Andrews, Kittle, Waller. Am I missing anybody? Well, Kelsey, of course. And basically, that's it. Maybe Kyle Pitts if he, I don't know, he has a new quarterback.
Schultz.
Yeah, from Atlanta. So
Dalton Schultz as well.
No, Aaron, no.
Are you kidding
CJ
me?
Uzama
I'm not
as
kidding.
well, Andy?
No, you guys, stop it. Fans, stop it.
TJ Hawkinson?
Yeah, I would say TJ Hawkinson above those guys. Yeah, above those
Mark
guys.
Andrews?
But the
Mark
ones
Andrews?
I said Mark Andrews.
Did
He's
you?
like the
Okay.
That
yeah.
was like one of the first
Okay,
ones.
I didn't hear that.
He's like those top 5 ones. So it is what it is. You just have to be very careful with the tight ends, and you probably should pick one early, in my opinion, because they're just taken away. So it's up to you how early you want to take them, because you can miss in some decent and key players, but
I think you could pick up a solid one in third.
I was just saying because Andy gave that reaction of Dalton Schultz with what he was saying. I think he could be a tier 1 this season.
Draft him.
With Amari Cooper being gone, if there's, like you said, if there's not that many tight ends left, if Kelsey got picked up, Mark Andrews, Kittle, whatever.
Oh, for sure. If
I
those
think
top
Schultz is being,
if those top 5
uh,
are taken, then yeah, look at those. But I mean, there's also
then you're
Cal Pitts.
Then are you considering? Yeah. I think I would be more comfortable with Schultz, because Schultz doesn't have Mariota. He has Prescott, and for that reason, I'd be more comfortable with, because
True.
Amari Cooper's gone. CD Lamb is number 1. Schultz is going to be a very good blanket for Prescott this season, and we could see him performing even better than he did last season, because last season Schultz didn't have a bad fantasy season, not good or anything I just think he's a sleeper. That's all I'm saying, is I think he's capable of being a top 5 when the top 3 are gone.
I'm with you. With Cooper gone with the Cowboys and they have CeeDee Lamb, Prescott loves tight ends and he's going to use Schultz. So as long as he keeps healthy, he can be a decent tight end for sure. And with Pitts and Atlanta, you're absolutely right. With Mariota, we don't know what's going on there. I believe that Atlanta, they're not thinking too much of this season. They're probably waiting for next season to get their quarterback. They're not even going to trade for Jimmy Garoppolo or Baker or Sam Darnold. They're going to get from the draft for sure. So I think that with Kyle Pitts, it's a risky pick maybe later in the rounds, but it can also surprise you. You never know. He came really good from college, so hopefully that does transcend into his second year in the NFL.
Yep. I do think, I wouldn't be. It's because it really depends on the scenario of what kind of late rounds. If you get late round picks here, like getting a first round running back and then a second round tight end isn't the craziest thing in the world for me, in my opinion. If you're able to pick up someone like Mark Andrews, Kelsey, Kittle, that's just my opinion. But we all agree that number 1 overall, that we think, with no bias here, that we think that logically speaking, Jonathan Taylor is going to go number 1 overall in the fantasy drafts.
Agreed.
100%.
Cool. That was pretty easy. It was cool to talk about the fantasy. I'm excited to get more into it as the season gets closer. What's it called? Training camp is right around the corner. Like, actually, what is it, tomorrow?
Well,
Tuesday,
a lot of teams reported
26th.
today. So this
Today,
week, all
there you
this
go.
week, teams are reporting.
So this week, the ball is starting to roll with the season. Sooner or later, we're gonna have the preseason, and it's gonna start picking back up again. The excitement is gonna be there. But for now, that's gonna conclude for this episode of Football Tailgaters. We appreciate anyone that's made it to the end, and we hope to see you guys interacting with us on our social media, which is Football Tailgaters on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. And thank you guys so much for listening. We'll see you back until next episode.
Thank you.